Hello, and welcome back to A Life Economy, dedicated to exploring the intersection of technology, spirituality, and consciousness. We're your hosts, Cosmos Sharf,
And Summer Perry.
and today we are very blessed to be joined by Sarah Adams. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited about this show.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to have you here as well. So, you are, I guess you would describe yourself as an intuitive healer, and you've appeared on Gaia and Vice, and I was actually very captivated by your interview on Gaia specifically several years ago. You're talking about the multidimensional reality and past lives, and we're gonna dive deep here today on this episode into spirituality and all kinds of really, I guess, kind of far out topics. Although I would argue that maybe they're not so far out because there's more to reality than meets the eye. You shared about many supernatural experiences that you've had, including, telepathy, time travel, astral projection. So, I guess I would love to start, with a brief intro about your experiences and your work.
Wow, it's like, there are many things that I experience, and so it's kind of hard, but it's great that my team gave me that label. So, I have a lot of memories of living on Mars, of Atlantis, Egypt. Actually, for me, Egypt is one of the most recent kind of civilizations that is connected deeply to Atlantis and definitely to the civilizations we had on other planets. So that was my most recent incarnation where they hadn't like quite fallen from the truth and from the ancient practices, as I call them. Um, and I have like 2 billion years of memory, traveling planets, having
Wow.
different bodies. Sometimes I was an ET, sometimes they went to different realms and just stayed there a while and then came back to the physical realms. So I have a lot of memories of that. And then of course I speak to ETs, I speak to these different councils, and there's over 200 ET races that are visiting the planet. By the way, I interact with the spirits, I interact with the souls of those who passed, which they're, by the way, which we can maybe get into this, they're kind of really worried about humanity.
Mm.
So I'm experiencing a lot of different things. So I don't like to label myself. I label myself that. My team helped me with that. That was the easiest way to get
Sure.
people to understand me
Yeah.
because they were like, "What are we going to label you as, an alien?" I'm like, "Well, I'm in a human body here, and I have had alien lives." And so it was interesting doing the labeling thing. But for me, I'm God, and I know that sounds absolutely drastic and crazy to a lot of people because they haven't opened up to the things that I know. But yes, we're all God, we're all spirit, and we take on these different bodies, whether they're ET bodies, whether they're human bodies, whether it's animals, plants, trees. But above that, we're God. So
Mm.
it's, for me, that's the knowingness that I have within myself, that I'm God and I have all these different experiences, which are beautiful. I'm kind of like a eternal cosmic traveler, and
Mm.
I'm awake to that, and I do believe that in the future many people will wake up to that.
Yeah, I agree. So, I personally don't have any memories of past lives, although I believe that it's a real thing. I believe that it's possible for sure. I mean, many people have shared their experiences out of body, and I believe that humans are way more powerful than we believe ourselves to be. And I
Mhm.
guess I'm just curious though, with someone listening to this podcast, they start listening and they're like, okay, hold on, wait a sec. You're saying you remember being on Mars, you remember being in Atlantis. Like, what does that actually look like? Could you kind of share, um, I guess maybe an example, or, um, do you see imagery when you say that you remember these past lives? Like, what does that mean for you?
So it's almost like you would remember an experience that you had.
Hmm.
That's how I remember it. And initially they were hyper advanced, and Mars wasn't the only planet that was inhabited. And by the way, planets, as you see, They're physical and 3D. They're also ancient spirits. They're
Mm,
spheres and
mm,
spirits. Their energy, condensed energy. How a planet is created is when energy is condensed. That's what makes a solid object. So it's condensed energy. Each planet has a specific frequency in it. Each frequency connected to each one of our chakras. Venus is connected to the heart chakra. So each one of these planets have a specific frequency and each one of the planets are connected to each one of our chakras. This is an ancient system. All the planets were originally inhabited. There was a cataclysm, and I remember them being inhabited, and people used to travel astrally. They used to travel among the realms. They could teleport. They had temples. There's a temple on each planet. On Venus, there's the temple of what I call love, and for the heart chakra, so there's temples on each planet, and they were attuned to each specific energy of that planet, these temples, and beings would travel to them, and they would, go into these temples, and these energies would fill them and replenish them and regenerate them and rejuvenate them. So not only Mars was inhabited,
mhm.
Venus was inhabited. Neptune is where there was the aquatic species. In fact, the the creation of fish and whales and aquatic species actually comes from Neptune. So we and even certain plants and animals, they come from other planets and other realms. So there was an interplanetary system and also interdimensional, multidimensional, where beings took physical bodies and they were doing genetic testing. So but in divine law and a divine order, so they were creating these bodies coming from the spirit realms into the physical bodies. It was quite beautiful.
Mm,
And so it was very advanced, and they were
mm,
aligned with the divine. So they had this mass amount of wisdom and knowledge that was infinite and eternal flowing through them, which allowed them to channel that into the 3D worlds, 3D creation, and be hyper advanced. And the technology that we have now, it's nothing compared to the technology that they had. This is what I remember. So they would,
wow.
they would channel in the energies of the different moons and suns and things like that, and they were quite powerful. They would go out their bodies. They had treaties with interdimensional beings, just like we have ambassadors. They had ambassadors that would open up new portals and gateways and create new treaties with creation, and creation is vast. It's huge. So there was a flow between the realms of the supernatural, the spirit, and the physical 3D realms that we no longer have. That it's been long forgotten. So remember this, and I remember they're traveling among the stars, and that Earth was the newest planet, and it was kind of like a backup planet. It was kind of like when you put in a USB to save all your information in case your computer gets wiped. They put in
Wow.
a lot of genetics from the other planets, things like strawberries and the chocolate trees and all that. That comes from Venus. Different roses come from Venus. So they put in all
Uh,
of these different DNA and plant species and things from other planets onto Earth. It was
huh.
the backup planet. When this cataclysm, which I have full memory of, and I spoke about this on Gaia also, when this happened, the spirits, the last remaining hub of 3D physical reality that was okay was here on this planet, and the spirits came and beings came from the other planet, and they came into these bodies, which were the human body. By the way, is divine tech. It's the latest creation of the bodies that they were creating, because they were creating different bodies. That's why you have the elongated skulls. That's why you have these different you have the giants. These were different bodies that they had
Yeah.
created to inhabit. This is the latest technology, is the human body.
Fascinating. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, what you're describing, from a certain perspective can seem very much like a sci-fi reality, but it is the reality that I subscribe to. I mean, some people might want to argue with that, but I think it's fascinating and amazing. And I'm curious, in this breadth of experience, which is quite vast, right? I mean, you were saying, 2 billion years worth of memories, or more or less. What have they taught you about the nature of reality and the meaning of, why we're here, or why you're here on Earth at this time?
So They expressed to me, well, I chose to come to the planet because the thing is that everything's a bit in chaos, and people, they're disempowered. They don't realize how powerful they are. They
Mm.
don't realize that, they're in these physical bodies, but they're spirit, and they've forgotten the realm of spirits. They've forgotten their past. They've forgotten themselves, their true selves below this layer of skin that they put on.
Mm.
And for them, for humanity to be okay, for them to survive, they need to return to the soul, which is God energy within them. So I chose to come here. My council told me, they said, don't go to Earth right now. It's really hard there. And I said, because I do have free will, I'm going to come to Earth. So I decided to come to Earth specifically for this, to channel in the information, to remind people that, hey, we have polluted oceans, we have polluted skies, we have disease, we have sickness, we have people that are depressed, we have people that are suppressed across the planet. However, we within ourselves, when we channel this energy, when we connect to ourselves,
Mm.
literally, we have immense power to shift this. And it's important right now with everything that's happening in the world. It's important that people understand this, that they are, they no longer need to be the victims in their lives. They no longer need to live in suppression. They no longer need to live, where they're suffering every day. They have the power to shift that. And we can shift time, we can shift reality, timelines. We can even heal the oceans and the skies and stuff of pollution, because pollution is a dense energy, and we can channel higher energies to actually cancel out or transmute those dense energies, and that will heal everything.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, there are many dark narratives about what's going on in the world right now with coronavirus, and obviously there are many crises, right, when it comes to the environment, with the food and the water and the air, as you mentioned. What's your perspective on kind of current affairs, and is there some sort of spiritual war going on?
Of course, there's a spiritual war going on. That's a true conspiracy right there. There's a war on consciousness, because God is an energy force that flows through the earth, through the oceans, through you, through me, through everything. Pollution is dense energy that blocks that flow of cosmic energy through everything. So they're trying
Mm.
to literally block us off from God energy that flows through everything. The more a person has dense energies, the more they're functioning from here, and they're in a state of what I call of being asleep. Whenever the body has a lot of energy flowing through it, they remember their past lives. They remember
Mm.
everything, and they're tapped into this God consciousness. They can truly see what's going on in the world, and they understand their power, and they live in that power. So they don't want you to be like that. They want you to be at the mercy of the system, because the day that humanity wakes up, they no longer, the elite no longer have power. They will no longer be able to hold positions of power and authority. And this is a big problem for them, and they know this. So they know by polluting the planet, that keeps the frequency of the planet up, and that keeps humanity asleep. And yes,
Mm.
this is a huge conspiracy. It's a huge war on consciousness going on, and those who are truly awakened can see this and understand how it works. So they want you to stay asleep. They want you to go to your 9 to 5 job. They want you to go ahead and be fearful. They want you to be unhealthy, because a person who is healthy, who has
Mhm.
energy flowing through them, who is really doing well, who's connected to their soul and God source within, that's a problem for the system. That person has immense power, and that's a problem for the system. So they want to keep everyone from that. As for the viruses again are a low frequency, and we have the power to go in and clear frequencies out of our bodies, and bring in and channel in higher frequencies. We can talk to the sun, like the ancient Egyptians, they were sun worshipers. We can tell the sun, channel in your frequency, and it will do so. We can talk to the ancient spirits that are called planets in this 3D world. They'll channel their frequencies into us and fill us with these higher frequencies, which will bring us up in frequency. This is important to do right now. And when we do this, this cancels out those lower frequencies and disease and viruses and pollution, toxicity are all simply frequencies, lower dense frequencies. So they know this. So they're bombarding us with this. And interestingly enough, in the word corona is connected to the crown. So the fear of this disease, just the fear energy alone is a dense energy, and it's blocking you from connecting to your crown chakra and connecting to the divine. So it's really, for me, a war on consciousness. They're trying to cut off the crown chakra. They're making people afraid. They're also doing all of these things to cut people off from their crown chakra, which is connected directly to the divine and higher consciousness.
Yeah.
Wow. It's sort of like you answered so many questions I had just then. But I'm really interested to understanding how you originally either started clearing and raising your frequency. Did something happen in your life, or did you just retain it from childhood? And if there's anything you can share with listeners about how to clear their frequency and raise their vibration.
So, a lot of my work is to teach people about the divine tech called the body, and the divine energy within us called the soul. And yes, I've been through quite a few interdimensional battles, and luckily it came out all of them okay. Some took they did me some damage, honestly. But that was my mission. My mission was to come here, clear out dense energies, clear out lower forces. Either they get to go back to the divine, or they have to go back to their dimensions, because Earth is being freed of these entities and energies. So that's my mission, of which I fully embraced without complaining, because at one point I did complain a little bit to the councils. I was like, hey, I got here, it's hard now. I'm maybe this is this is definitely harder. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should just go somewhere else. And they were very supportive to remind me I had chosen this mission here. And they did show me, if I continued, I would really do some great work for the world. So I continued my mission. When it comes to the body's divine text. So you have the organs. Now, the body is the original temple. And Christ said the body was the temple. Now, the thing is that we're looking in religions, we're looking in churches, we're looking in all these places without realizing the body's the temple. This is the important place right here to actually commune with and connect with. If you go to Europe, you see cathedrals, and they have an organ in them. When you play the organ, it creates this beautiful tune inside the whole cathedral. Cathedral, of course, is it's a temple. It literally comes from the designs of temples that we had in ancient time, the architecture of temples. So that's what cathedrals and churches do. They come from that. And if one of the keys of the organ is off, the sound, the symphony in the whole cathedral is off. We have organs. If one of them is blocked with dense energy, the symphony in our whole body is off. So we have to go in and speak to our organs. So I go in and I literally, what I do is I visualize, and I can do this instantaneously, but I get my clients to visualize a golden tunnel of light. They fly up that tunnel. They keep flying until I get them to 22D. And yes, you can go past 5D. That's a whole story in itself, which it would probably be hard to cover today. So you go past 5D, you go all the way up to 22D. When you go to 22D, you feel tingles all over your body, and you can feel you're in God consciousness. So then you focus on your liver. You don't need to know where it's at. Most people don't know where their organs are. I've learned this from working with people. So you ask your liver, do you need cleared of, do I need to delete negative emotions, past life karma, pollution, bacteria, and go through a list out of you. And then you clear your mind. And I'm not kidding you. The thought will come through and tell you what needs to be cleared out of your liver. So then you tell your liver, delete this frequency out of me, delete this trauma out of me, delete this or whatever you need to delete out of me. And it'll do that. Then you ask your liver, what color light do you need me to channel? And it'll say, if it's got inflammation, it'll say light blue, because light blue is good for inflammation. So then you go ahead and you do that, and you do that to every organ. This is what Christ meant by that one needs to die to be born again. It doesn't mean to physically die like people think. It means that we must completely clear out our old energy body and create a new light body. So once I go through the whole system, even through the blood cells, the bones, every part of the body, and this is extensive work, once that's deleted out, then I start to go ahead and rebuild the light body. And let's say a person is suffering from they had a really they had a heart attack. A heart attack only happens because not enough electrical energy is coming through the heart. And that's via toxins, emotions, a lot of different things. The only reason the body shuts down is because there's not enough electrical energy. Your soul is not united with your body. It's unhappy. So it's out here and your body's right here. As your soul gets farther out, you age, you get sick, and a lot of things, because the soul, which is electrical energy, keeps the body alive. So basically you have to go in and you have to clear. And as you do too, your soul steps more into yourself. And then the two become one, and you become ultimately powerful, because you're instantaneously like, instead of, a lot of people are what I call slow. Like their systems function very slow. The more your soul's in, the more you're instantaneously functioning quick, and you're one with God's source, and you just have this knowing. And this gives you powers. This gives you a lot of different things, that access to stargates, access to speak into ETs, many different things like that. So like going back to the heart, I delete stuff out of the heart, delete the old blue imprint of energy, and I create a holographic energetic heart and merge that in. People feel it instantaneously. And then what that does is that energy powers the heart and replenishes the heart and heals the heart. So we must create a whole entire new light body. And that's what it means to be, when Christ said, thou shalt die to be reborn again. That's what it means. And then when there's enough light in you, you tap into Christ's consciousness. You realize that every one of us is Christ. There's not just one Christ. We're all Christ. We're all God. We're all connected. Once that happens, guess what? We have this stuff called junk DNA that they talk about. There's no such thing as junk DNA. DNA only shuts off whenever there's not enough energy. So the energy, when you bring the energy up, it lights up your junk DNA, and it lights up something called the God gene. The God gene is something that there was a lot of studies done on the God gene. The God gene basically, they found it was lit up in people who were prophetic, people who were clairvoyant, people who were truly psychic. So when we have enough energy flowing through us, all our junk DNA gets lit up. So does our entire brain. The reason these things are shut off is because not enough energy is flowing through us. So we on this planet, we haven't understood at what capacity we can actually function at. It's much higher than now. Most people are functioning at like 20%, if that, because when the soul comes to come in the body at the point of conception, basically with think about it, the energy field of their parents, it's all full of all this karma, this trauma, all the wars, all of that stuff. Which is dense energy, and the soul is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's love. It's very, it's wild and free. It's like I don't want to go into this like this body where there's already all of this in there, so it can't fully merge. So it merges a little bit. So most people are born with only like 20% of their soul merged in. So once we go in and we clear everything, their soul fully merges in. Then they wake up and they're like, whoa, it's like I've been kind of like sleeping beauty this whole time. I did not realize that, there was all this these other dimensions, and there's just so much.
Wow. Fascinating. I love what you're saying about the organs and how they have their own intelligence and awareness, and how you can speak to them. And that makes a lot of sense. And and also the connection between the organs and the planets and how everything is fractal. Really, really interesting. Yeah.
And we're living too much in the lower chakras, right? And we're not connecting to the higher chakra system. So there's a split, and then it's like, then we have the Merkaba, we have the aura, we have the physical body, we have the emotional body. and all these things are disconnected. So it's really important to go in and reconnect them. And that's a lot of the work that I do. I connect all these different parts of the self up. And then as you connect up, you can I instantaneously just switch, can see ETs, speak to the ETs, and my friends can actually feel their presence, and I'll just tell them what the ETs are saying. And some of my friends I've trained so that they can see the ETs too and speak to them. So we are multidimensional. We have forgotten this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very powerful realization to become aware that there is more beyond the reality of just what we can perceive directly, right, with our five senses. And then I'm curious, so when you say that you're able to interact with these ETs, I'm assuming that they're in another dimension that is adjacent to ours, or somewhere close by, and then you're able somehow to perceive that dimension that is close by. I'm curious, what does that actually look like for you?
So they appear to me just like, a person in the room, and I have a lot of love for them because they're doing their best. They're doing their best to try to help out humanity while respecting the karma of humanity. Because if they just came and they helped humanity out, people would do the same terrible things again and expect to be rescued. So if they step in and completely just take care of everything, that would actually just keep humanity from evolving. So they're helping out. They're making sure there's no nuclear wars. They're making sure there's no wars going on. They're making sure that elite leaders who would create wars aren't elected. And that's happened since the last Great World War on this planet. So they're doing things like this all the while watching humanity, like that child that's taken its first steps. It's going to have to fall sometimes before it learns to walk. Because now I have such love for them. And I have so much respect for the unconditional patience and faith and compassion they have on humanity. Yes.
Yeah.
And some of the governments of this planet have done some very terrible things towards them. And I'm aware of this. And despite that, they don't give up and trying to do what they can to help the planet while not breaking the cosmic divine laws that they adhere to. So, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm obviously doing this podcast in my bedroom here. I wake up, I sit up, and there's the council surrounding me. They're like, okay, this is information today you need to give to humanity. We're worried about the ocean. She's an ancient spirit. She's on this planet to, she's here to give her divine presence, to let us swim in her, to let us, experience her beauty. And they're like, she's suffering. Tell them that they can channel energy to heal the ocean. They need to care about the spirits and the realms of the spirits and their spirits. So they'll come to me and tell me about things like this, or they'll say, okay, listen, the children around the world, we've been taking them at night and giving love to them because they're not getting enough love. And they'll tell me things like that so that, because without love, a planet it rots, it decays, it devolves. So they'll come and just tell me what's happening, with all the things they're doing, and ask me if I want to help out at certain times. And it's like family. They come and support me, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's wonderful.
I know here in the U.S., some of the Native American tribes are working to give lakes, rivers, oceans, mountains, and other bodies of land legal personhood so that they can then take responsibility for protecting those, for protecting nature as a legal person, which sounds really interesting because it sort of reminds me of how corporations are considered legal persons, which is just ridiculous. But it's really cool that people could take that same train of thought and sort of turn it around to help the environment, which what you were just saying kind of reminds me of that. I wonder if that's divine energy working through people to give them these amazing ideas to be able to engineer a system that could work in favor of the planet instead of harming it.
I agree with you. And the interesting fact about the Native Americans, they're actually from off planet, their bloodline. So they have a lot of the ancient practices and connection to the lands and realms of spirits that they've kept within themselves on a genetic level. Um, when I was working with Gaia, we were doing some studies on this, well, with this particular subject. So the Native Americans are the offspring of the pharaohs, the ancient pharaohs in Egypt. And of course, the pharaohs were from off planet. That bloodline was from off planet. So and what they did is they interacted in the realm of spirits just as much as the physical realm. And that's why the Native Americans have that in their genetics, and they have powers. If you look, they could do rain dances and it would rain. They were speaking to the elements and the elements were responding. So they have all that knowledge, and this is what the ocean tells me. She tells me the same thing. She's like, I'm in pain, I'm hurt, and I need you to tell humanity to channel energy to me to heal me. Just like we channel Reiki to each other and energy to each other that affects us, we can actually use the same method to heal the planet. These are ancient practices. We had a group of priests and priestesses who traveled among the realms and planets, and they would make sure the frequency of the planet was in such a high frequency, and the planet, the spirit, was happy and well, and just flowing in a divine symphony. And that's what we need to realize, is that the earth is an ancient spirit, and we can channel energy to her to bring her frequency up. We had no deserts originally. We had no disease. We had no starvation, suppression. We had none of these things happening. It's only happening because the earth's frequency is right here. We need to learn how to channel energy into the planet and steer her into higher frequencies, and we have that ability.
Amazing. I have so many different thoughts and directions here, but I guess okay. So there's one part of the conversation around healing the planet, and I want to come back to that, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask more about the ET stuff, because I'm super fascinated about that, and it's definitely my dream to hang out with them, or to meet them, and I believe they exist, but I can't say that I know that, because I haven't necessarily had like a direct experience in that way. So when they're showing up for you, do they like, just practically, I'm just curious, like, do they literally just like pop into your room? Is it something that's more like in your mind's eye? Like, what are the mechanics of your interaction with them?
So I go into their ships. I can summon their ships. Sometimes I help with the children, the hybrid children. They also are running some programs, specific races, to put ETDNA into people, and the sole purpose of it is to help them to become back multidimensional, because they don't want the planet to become where people are too 3D, and they're not making choices. They're not doing actions from their spirit. They're doing actions from a very low frequency that's cut off from the spirit realms, which is actually dangerous, because that creates ripples in time and space. And that's why we've had, dictators in the past who have created a lot of damages, because they were so cut off from their soul energy and from the realm of spirits. They were basically like walking dead and making decisions that were absolutely awful. The more a person is shut down, the more they're going to make decisions that are deadly for themselves and others. So by bringing in this DNA, they're helping to keep them connected to the realms of the spirits. They're doing this to try to help out the planet and the frequency of everyone on the planet. In essence, their DNA is just a higher frequency. That's like a gift they're given to people, so that, because these 3D bodies used to be in high frequency, and then we kind of walked away from that. We forgot that. So by giving their DNA, which is a high frequency, back with that high frequency we forgot long ago, they're just bringing it and weaving it back into us, so that we can reascend into the realms of the spirits and also the realms of the extraterrestrials and be multidimensional again. So it's a beautiful gift. So yeah, they appear to me like I said, like me sitting here, they appear to me. They'll appear to me in a group, sometimes the different councils. They also, I go into their ships. We also monitor for what I call lower energy entities that are trying to affect Earth, that right now I feel have a huge what are some of our leaders. I'm not saying all the leaders around the earth are bad or evil, but I'm saying there's definitely some elite who are doing some dark practices, dark magic, dark occultic practices. So they intervene on that to try to clear out those spirits, because those spirits just suck energy. And they're very devastating for the planet. So they intervene to try to just clear those out. It really honestly depends. Sometimes they'll appear, like I'll just look and I'll just see a face flash, or like the other night, I was talking telepathic light language to them. They were talking telepathic light language back to me. And they were like, listen, you are going to a new level. And a beam of light came down into me. So that was the experience that I had last night. They were telling me that the white buffalo woman is actually Hathor, the Egyptian cow goddess, which makes a lot of sense. So they were telling me how these different religions have some truth in them, but it was taking back from, much more ancient energies and myths and things like that, and beings that existed in energies. So they tell me things like this. So they show me codes, and they also are able, I have a friend that I'm doing the retreat center with here in Sedona, that a multidimensional temple retreat center. And I was in Las Vegas doing a conference there. And I have this ET, and in every session he comes, he holds the ancient light, he pours that into people's bodies, and he's like 19 feet tall. He never ever, he always communicates with me what he's doing. Or for this one time, her ribs were out of place. She was in bad pain. She opened her eyes, and he had went to her and he put her ribs back into place. So that was really nice of him. And she doesn't really, she's open to ETs, but she said that was such an experience just to see him. So he went on his own and did that. So kind of the ETs that work with me, if somebody's not doing well around me, they go and they take care of it. It's beautiful.
Wow. Well, hopefully you can send them a message to get in touch with us someday.
You want me to arrange an abduction?
Well, oh man, maybe be careful what I ask for, right?
There was this guy, and he's like, I don't take any ETs. And I'm like, hey, I tweeted him. I'm like, I can arrange for your abduction. He never responded.
Oh God. Yeah. So, it's fascinating. I'm noticing this theme, this connection between the disconnection that people have with themselves, right? In the trauma that we have within our own bodies, and the way that we treat the planet, and the way that we pollute the planet. It's like the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we believe, the way that we think about ourselves is reflected in the way that we treat animals and the rainforest and the oceans and all of that. And it seems like the big theme that the ETs have for us is to bring awareness to that and start to transform that from within our own being. And the thing that we really have full control over is starting with ourselves and clearing out, all that negative energy.
Right. So we must become pilots rather than co-pilots. And it's easy to see a lot of people are co-pilots. They're not mastering their energy fields. They're not even mastering their bodies. People just think that their body is like a trash. They put everything, in it, and they expect it to work, and it starts to break down. They don't know why. People can't even take care of their bodies. And, it's really, really intense and sometimes hard work to get people to understand, hey, you need to eat healthier. I've been quite shocked all these years, and I never failed to be shocked about how people just basically eat all this fast food. They put all this stuff in their bodies. They don't even care about their body, much less their soul. Imagine trying to get them to realize they have a soul and clear their energy so they can't even eat healthy. This has been it's been immense for me, to teach people you are what you eat. Your consciousness will function according to what you're putting in your body. Your cells are like, they have to be able to hold the energy of your body. Your cells are unstable if you're putting all this junk food in your body. It's been a huge journey for me to awaken people just to eat healthier. It's been, like I said, very hard journey. I remember years ago I got laughed at for eating organic salads. And he was like, why are you eating organic salads?
Oh man.
It's important to actually put food that has electrical charge in it. In the ancient times, they would take their water, they would put it under the sun and moon and stars and charge it and drink it, even their food. We're not. We're eating all this cooked, depleted food. We're eating all of this just processed stuff. And then it's dead. We're eating dead food and it's making our bodies more dead. If we start to eat foods that are charged with life force energy, with charged with cosmic energy, drink water that's charged with energy, that actually starts to light up our system and replenish it, regenerate it, and rejuvenate it. Of course, it does what I said a while ago, it lights up your junk DNA and all of those things, the more energy you have within yourself. So for me, the biggest thing a person can start with on this journey, simply go eat a healthy diet. It's that simple. Go eat your fruits, your vegetables.
Simple but challenging, right?
Yes.
Can be challenging,
Mhm.
especially if we're used to eating in a particular way, right? And it makes us feel comfortable and safe. And then, I've had
It
my own
blocks them.
yeah.
So
Go ahead.
people who've had trauma are drawn. Okay, so the system stores trauma. It stores it almost like a computer would store files. So the body has to be healthy enough to actually transmute that trauma out of it. Sometimes the body is so broken down, it's like, I can't process the trauma right now. Keep feeding me dense stuff that's going to keep that trauma from coming through and me processing it, because I can't right now. That's why a lot of self-love, a lot of bringing in just a lot of energy. When we bring in energy to our body, our system's like, okay, I feel better. I'm going to now process this trauma. I might cry for the next hour, but then it's going to be out and I'll feel better and lighter, because all the trauma, even from our ancestors, the wars and everything, has brought our energy field down. It's in our energy field and it's there until we actually bring it up, process it, face it, and let it go. Then our energy can go up. So a lot of junk food, people who've had severe trauma, whether this lifetime or past lifetimes, or have a lot of ancestral karma, they're going to be the ones eating a lot of junk food and dense foods because they're not strong enough to process it. So for me, when I work on a person, I'm like, don't go change your diet right away. I like, first of all, bring in the energy. As you bring in the energy, and then your body's going to be like, okay, it's going to create better foods, higher frequency foods. And then it's going to get better and better and better. And then it's going to process that trauma and you can get through it. I've had a lot of clients go through that. Like, I don't shift their diet. I'll have them take some herbs and whatever, but I generally never do them change their diet, but they start getting cleaner and clearer on an energetic level, more energy. They completely go shift their diet themselves. I don't have to get them to do that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And as you're speaking, I sort of see it visually when we are born into this world, we're just like this brilliant, multicolored, bubbling light, or like kind of sphere of energy. And we grow up and we get programmed with many negative beliefs, various traumas. We eat, junk food, as you were saying. We breathe toxic air, we drink toxic water, and then over time, by the time we're adults, or maybe teenagers, for example, it's just like we've just accumulated all of these sort of, as you're saying, like dense energies, this like kind of like muck, right? In the way that, if you leave your car out on the street for a week or a month, it's going to accumulate this like layer of kind of dust and filth, or an air filter, right? If I leave it unwashed for a month, it's going to accumulate all this dust. And so we have this society of people walking around with all just caked in dirt and dust, but it's not necessarily visible, right? And so that's the challenge, is like it's something that is in the energetic field, and you can feel it, right? Like certainly there's a difference when I'm feeling clear and sharp versus I'm feeling sluggish. Like I can tell the difference, but it seems like one of the biggest challenges is that there's quite a lot of people that are walking around in this sort of very dulled, anesthetized. I don't know how to say it.
Anesthetized.
Thank you. The doctor right here. Anesthetized state but they don't even know it, right? So it's like, how is like,
we don't know. Yeah. It's like, it's a vibrational prison. It's a frequency prison. And they don't even know that frequency exists. Most people don't know an aura or chakra exist. This is and this is another thing in in my field of work, it's like I have some people that are like, what's an aura? They don't even, they're not even aware they have an aura. So it's
Fascinating.
yeah, no. So then, we get up in the morning, we shower or we bath to clear our bodies, and nobody's clearing their energy field. And that is eventually, when you have a dense energy field, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be sick, you're going to manifest a life that is chaotic, where you're like losing people, losing things, losing everything, and no stability. So you're going to manifest a lot of negative things. You're going to manifest disease, and some people sadly manifest death because they don't understand that dense energy blocks the cosmic energy, which then kills the body. So yes, this is a huge problem on the planet right now. So we have people walking around in a vibrational prison, and they don't understand that depression is a vibration, sickness is a vibration. They don't know there's a way out. And I have so much deep compassion for them, because these people are living in emotional hell every day. And that emotional hell is manifesting a life of physical hell for them. And that's why we have ghettos across the world. That's why we have homeless. That's why we have third world countries, because of this. If they cleared out those energies, I assure you, their whole lives would change and shift. And no, for me, the work I do, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a homeless person. You just start clearing your energies and bringing in higher energies, your life will shift. It will start to become better. You will start to heal. Things will become so much better for you. The universe will open up all these opportunities for you. This is very, very important information for me to get across to people, because being one with God, I feel that person across the world who's suffering. And it's very humbling. I mean, a lot of people look at me and they're like, she's very gifted and she's blessed on all levels. But you know what? I am. But what very much humbles me, what keeps me doing this work, is the fact that sometimes I go in and feel everything around the world. I feel the oceans crying. I feel the forest crying, the skies crying, because the pollution, because yes, they're spirits and they hurt and they cry and they feel. And humanity sadly does not know this. And I feel those children suffering, and I feel the people suffering across the world. So for me, the information to get to humanity, that to come through me from the divine, is to tell them they have power, and they can go ahead and tap into that power within and shift their realities, because we have millions of suffering people around the world. Even people who look very well or who are very wealthy or celebrated on a worldly level, a lot of them suffer with depression and a lot of other negative emotions that are tearing them down, because they have not tapped into God's source. Because when you tap into God's source, you wake up, and it doesn't matter what traumas happened to you. You wake up like a happy little child, and you manifest everything that you need, and God blesses you. The divine blesses you. And for me, I'm so passionate about this, because it hurts to see people hurt, and I know there's a way out for them.
Yeah, Summer's very empathetic as well. And yeah, I mean, I remember listening to your you're talking about the oceans and the whales, and the whales beaching themselves on an episode of Gaia, and that was like, I started to cry because I was like really
I
feeling.
still want to cry from that one. That's
Yeah.
very hard. Some of the experiences that I have, like I said, that's what keeps me so passionate about this, because some of those experiences are they're very emotional for me. And I've had experiences of just feeling children dying of starvation, and feeling with that homeless person sleeping out in the snow and rain. I can feel what they feel. And I think there's a movie about that. I forget the name of it. It's an older movie, and literally this being, he makes people feel the pain of those they're hurting, and says, listen, you need to stop this, because we're all connected. We're all connected. And we need to start understanding that. And even though a lot of people aren't awakened to the fact that they're connected to that person that's sleeping on the street in the rain and snow, they are, and it's affecting their energy field and their emotions and their entire being, and they need to wake up to this.
Sure.
So it's important for us to understand we're connected to that ocean we're polluting. We're connected to those skies that we're polluting. So we need to actually spiritually mature up, and we need to step into our divine power and shift this, because if we don't, this planet's going to look exactly like Mars, that was once inhabited, and now it's barren. And we need to look at the skies and at these planets and say, hey, they came to end. Let's not let that happen to this earth, where all life dies on it, because we are just being terrible to ourselves and others and to the planet.
Yeah, I read that when you die, or when we die, we experience all the pain that we caused others, because we become aware of every aspect of like our connection to other people. And I also wonder, I don't know if you ever watched Battlestar Galactica, but I wonder if we just have been going back and forth between Earth and Mars for like forever.
Ooh, good question there. So actually we've been replaying out, almost like the movie Groundhog Day. We've been replaying this out until we actually get it right. So we replay this out over and over in different civilizations. We replay this out until we actually step into the divine God self within ourselves. So we're replaying this out until we fix that broken symphony. Because right now we're living in a broken symphony. And by fixing the energies within us and clearing the energies and bringing in the higher energies, we make that symphony beautiful again. And that will channel to the whole world. So it's up to those of us who are awakened to go within and do the work, and that will reflect upon all of creation on this planet and shift it. We don't even have to say a word. And that is the ultimate plan. And the divine is waiting for those who are waking up to step into that and to actually go in and do the work, to completely channel the divine symphony through them and be a portal for that on this planet. That's what's going to be the enlightenment of humanity. It's to channel the light through into all of humanity, and that will light them up.
That sounds great. What do you think of when people say things like, we're going to jump ship and go live on Mars? With your past experiences with Mars, what do you think of that? Like, to me, that sounds
great question.
Just, I can't even unpack how, I don't want to say wrong, because I don't think it's wrong to have aspirations or to imagine doing something great, but for the reasons why people talk about doing it, it just feels like not the right choice. And I just think, why would you want to abandon our planet?
It's beautiful. Our planet is beautiful. Hey, I've lived on Mars. But this planet is beautiful. You know, responsibility. Sure, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of horrible things happening on this planet, but we need to actually spiritually mature up and say, okay, I'm here. I'm here. What can I do to help out this planet, rather than want to run away to some other planet? And I understand people get overwhelmed and want to do that, but you're not jumping ship and going to Mars or somewhere else. First, you have to deal with the energies and the karma and everything else before you're able to even go into another realm, and you're going to go into you'll be in the karmic loop until you clear everything out, and then you'll be able to go to another realm. So the thing is, and if you're not learning your lessons and you're trying to escape them, then you're going to keep going to that karmic loop until you clear that karma, you clear those energies, and then you'll be out of that karmic loop. So you can't just go and die or go and jump or time travel to another planet. That's not going to happen. So people may as well start dealing with this planet and dealing with the issues on this planet, and taking self-responsibility and spiritually maturing up and doing the work that's needed.
Yeah. Earlier you were talking about suffering and, you know, with the animals and people, and, you know, on the one hand, I think it's hard for me to understand why certain people do the things they do without the realization that we're all connected, right? So if we realize we're all connected, there's like no reason to steal from someone else. There's no reason to harm someone else, because why would you harm yourself, right? And then on the other hand, I think about this interplay of the light and the dark being kind of the core, I suppose, mechanism for how God comes to know itself. God being coming from more of, I guess, a neutral space and not saying anything is good or bad, but just having the theater of the characters playing the good guy and playing the bad guy, and then it's the clash, it's the conflict that creates the narrative of life, and it being sort of a necessary function for our consciousness to evolve.
Experience.
Yeah. So I'm curious what your take is on that. I know you've shared some thoughts on that on other interviews.
There is really no, in the end, there is really no, how can I put this? There is no evil to me. There's only beings and people who are so disconnected from their souls that they're lost, that they're far from the divine frequency.
Wow.
That for me, that's what, because I've spoken to some of the darkest beings that exist. And whenever I come to them with compassion and love, they're so shocked, but they're like, listen, I've done terrible things. Why would you come to me with love? I don't deserve to be loved. And I say to them, I know you did what you did because you got hurt at some point.
Wow.
And I understand this. And I would never want to bring more hurt and harm to you when you live every single instant of your being and pain. You live like that. Why would I want to bring more harm and pain to you? I just want to bring you love and compassion because that's what I feel you need. And I have that for you. And it shifted some of the darkest beings. They were incredibly stunned that I brought them that. So for me, it's that more there's a disconnect going on rather than, yes, there are beings that don't want to live in the light. Of course, they're allowed to not live in the light. They have to go live in their in their dimensions. So it's right now, because humanity's choosing to go into higher consciousness, these beings either get to ascend or they go back to their realms where there's no light, because they choose that. That's their own free choice. They get that. The divine doesn't force anything or anyone, any spirit, any ET, anything whatsoever. So it really respects the choices of all. Some people might decide they just don't want to be good. So eventually they have to go into the realms where that's allowed so they can play that out until they learn, hey, that might not be the best thing for the choice for themselves and others. And they learn that there's consequences, and then they can shift that. And sometimes they won't do that for thousands of years. But that's respected by the divine, and that's respected by all beings. They're the free choice. We have free choice. I don't think people understand this, though. We have free choice.
Yeah.
The thing is, the planet is going up, so you're going to see a lot of denser beings. They're either going to ascend, they're going to go back to their realms.
Yeah, I totally agree that we have free will, and that leads me to wonder about, given your experience with past lives, how much of our lives are planned out ahead of time by our souls versus created in the moment. This is something that I kind of go back and forth on, and it's been a bit puzzling to me, because I'm aware of this idea that we kind of plan out who the characters are going to be. You'll play this role and you'll play that role, and you'll be my mother and you'll be my father and you'll be my lover, and it's like you'll be my acquaintance, and then we kind of jump in. We're like, oh, I'm here now. Wow, look at this. This is fun, cool, and crazy and horrible, all at once. But then at the same time, it does seem like, I would hope that once we're in the experience, that there are sort of like the moment to moment aspects that are not necessarily planned out ahead of time, if that makes sense.
That's a good question. So I can just tell you, in my case, I chose to be here and chose to come to the earth. Some people, though, are caught in a karmic cycle, which in a way they chose it because they did things that they were wasn't good for themselves and others. They get caught in this karmic cycle. They're kind of flung into a lifetime till they clear that out. There's actually different levels to this. Like, I don't think I've ever been asked this question, so I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. Some people choose to be here. Some people are caught in karmic cycles. Some people are born, their souls literally are born from Earth. She's a mother. So then they come into the physical human bodies. Some spirits go into sometimes like wolves and different animals, then go into the physical body after. And I've seen like, okay, I've had these experiences where in a past life of person, there's a cat, and and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I speak to animals and trees and stuff.
Nothing you will say will sound crazy for sure.
Well, the cat is like, hey, in a past life, I was like this person, and life in a human body was too much for me. So now I'm a cat. I'm getting all the nurture and I need, and it's quite hilarious to me. Now I'm being spoiled. There was this one little dog, and he's so taken care of and spoiled, and he was like, yeah, I was a gangster in a past life. And it's funny, he's a little bulldog too. He's a little bulldog, and he told me he was a gangster in a past life, and it was really intense for him. And he was like, well, now he's like, I chose to have, to be in a bulldog, and this is great because I get taken care of, and I'm a little king. And so he was expressing this to me.
That's awesome.
So sometimes, people, they're like, okay, it's too much to be in a body. I'm going to go and live as an animal or a tree, and this is why we need to really take care of nature, because those trees and stuff, they're all just like this body. Spirits can inhabit them and do inhabit them. We're burning on the trees and stuff. We're burning 3D physical homes of spirits.
Yeah.
So it would take me forever to explain to you the whole cycle of, okay, did you choose to be here? Yes. Some people karmic loop, some people born here, came into a body. So there's a lot of different pieces to that puzzle.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's interesting, right? Yeah. So it's a mix of things. And
yeah. I was curious about the mix of things related to free will, because I've heard you mention several times in pretty much every interview that you've done that we have free will, or that you have free will. And I was wondering, do you think we always have free will, or how do we have free will when we are asleep, or for those who are asleep for most of their time here in this life? How do we have free will in those cases, or do we not in those cases?
Humanity's burning off a lot of karma. And since they burned off a lot of karma, they're now able to actually awaken. Before you can awaken, you have to clear a lot of karma and dense energies. That's happening. So you're seeing an awaken and go on. Until that's cleared, you're stuck in kind of a cycle. So since that's being cleared, people are being allowed to wake up, and it was their free will to wake up. I mean, imagine if you remembered. If you remembered everything, it would kind of become boring, don't you think? If you didn't have a state of sleep and this beautiful like awakening, you would completely remember everything, and you would travel from planet to planet, realm to realm, and you'd be like, oh, I know everything.
Been there, done that.
Kind of boring. So we choose sometimes to go to sleep, literally. Just like me, I chose to be in this body. So we get to choose all these different experiences. So they chose that experience. They chose that. They also knew that they would evolve more going through these experiences, and that's why they chose to go through them. So the soul, I know there's a lot of death and suppression out there, but the soul never dies, and it's choosing experiences that in the end are going to make it evolve more. And it's gonna, there's thousands of universes and cosmos and realms. It's a eternal traveler. So death in this body is not necessarily all that, bad, because it knows what it's doing. And I trust the soul above all. Yes. So yeah, a lot, we're like, hey, we're going to go out and go down to earth, and we're going to have a part in this cosmic play in the 3D world. And This is going to help us learn more about the 3D realms, and it's going to help us have more experience before we continue on our journey. So yes, they have free choice, and even those who are asleep, that was their free choice to come into that body and have that period of being asleep before they woke up.
Mm. Yeah, what you're sharing is really important context for our lives here, right? Because sometimes I mean, Summer and I go back and forth. We say like, okay, well, like what's we're talking about like ETs and angels and that kind of stuff, and it's it's interesting, but it's like, well, how is that useful or practical, right, to our lives here? But what you're sharing is like, in a way, it sort of it takes the pressure off of this lifetime, in the sense like, yeah, like I am motivated to have a great life and to create positive impact on the world, but at the same time to see myself as that kind of little speck in the grand like multiverse, right, and all the possible realities and dimensions. It's like, yeah, this is just like a fraction of what
Exists.
everything of what exists, and what I'm
Yes.
going to what I'm currently experiencing.
We just don't even have the hardware to be aware in one instance of what all the possibilities are and what is occurring at every different level of existence or at every different dimension. So,
Well, it's not that we don't have the hardware. We have the hardware. We just don't know. A lot of people just don't know how to use that hardware. That's the thing. So it's
Right.
about learning how to use that hardware. And once you do, you can tap into most anything. And I'll tell you, I've seen stuff that is like, oh, this thing is like, how old? It's the last remaining thing from another universe, creation from another universe. So it's a beautiful experience. And I do feel that since humanity has been asleep for such a long time, that when they wake up, they're going to be so joyous and happy and so filled with bliss. They're going to really appreciate it and be thankful for it and have gratitude for it and not take it
Absolutely.
for granted.
Absolutely.
yeah, like you were saying, that we just don't know how to use the hardware. That's right. That's
Yeah.
more so what I mean. It was like earlier when you were mentioning about parts of our brain lighting up that we don't usually use, or I really think the term junk DNA is just a hilarious
It is.
oxymoron. Like, since when does nature create anything that's not there for a reason? It's
Nothing
just
out of
like
place.
how many times we have to
Yeah.
relearn that lesson. I just don't. It's so funny. So it's going to be interesting to see, I'm sure, very soon and multiple times in our lifetime, on the physical realm, we'll find out how wrong we were about that. And of course, if you dig a little bit deeper and go into the spiritual realms, like you were saying, there's so
Yeah,
much more to it.
In 200 years, they'll finally understand me. I'm just joking. They'll be like, she was
No.
on point, like Nikola Tesla here. He wasn't quite from this planet either, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh, yeah,
So
fascinating.
cool. I had a VHS tape about him when I was a kid, when I was like 8 years old. And I would put it in the tape player and it would go in and I would watch it over and over and over again.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's funny because a lot of his work, where he talked about actually tapping into the cosmic energies to charge the body, that's all been hidden. They make everyone think that he was just trying to, do these devices, but he had he had brought down a lot of knowledge on how to tap into the cosmic energies, electrical universe. And that's been hidden.
It's so interesting. There's like another man in Florida who was a few generations after Tesla. Or no, maybe before. I can't remember his name. Do you remember the man in Florida that built the Coral Castle?
Yeah, I know about that. Yes.
I forgot his name. I'm
forgetting
sorry.
his name, too.
Sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Apologize
I know who it is,
to whoever
though.
runs the Coral Castle. We'll fix that. But apparently he understood the
Ed?
same.
Is his name Ed?
I have no idea. Apparently he understood the same things that Tesla understood, and he built this castle alone. So it's just, and I think he was Hungarian too. like Tesla. It was very crazy. I was like, man, Americans must be missing out on some secrets or just some ancient knowledge or natural knowledge.
I do believe the pollution is like really messing with people here.
Mm.
No, so I know who you're talking about, and he used a similar method to how the pyramids were built.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
so
so
cool. He was like 90 pounds and he built this like several pound castle
well,
or like something. Yeah.
When you condense energy, it makes solid matter. So he most likely had that ability and he was using it. So that's what
Yeah.
he was doing, is it was creating solid matter out of energy.
Sure.
So yeah, people are going to ascend back into those powers. They're just blocked from them until they actually spiritually grow up and mature up and start to take control of their energy fields in their bodies, and then they'll get these superpowers. I know it's hard for people to understand and even fathom, but it's there, and it's the future of humanity. I mean, we have God flowing through us. Nothing is impossible, that's for sure.
I totally agree, and that's definitely my big takeaway from your experiences, and just learning about other people similar to you as well, just to remember how amazing we are as human beings, and powerful, and that we do have the ability to create whatever reality we want. And we spoke about diet as being, one of the key ways, or kind of like a straightforward way to, maybe not so straightforward, but relatively simple way to, start to, build those powers back up. But, just practically, are there other kind of dimensions or things that you would recommend for people that are listening? They're kind of like, wow, this is so crazy. This is so interesting. I never knew that, but where do I start? Like what? Because where we can start is with ourselves. So okay, we can change our diet, but then what are some of the other categories?
To do what the ancients did, they would go and they would sit under the moon and they would ask the moon to fill them, their bodies, their cells, their organs, with its divine frequencies. And they would ask the stars, they would ask the planets and the sun and the earth. And that's really quite life-changing, because then it shifts your frequency, it shifts your life, it shifts everything. And you start to feel alive again, because a person who has energy in them, they're literally alive. We have a lot of walking dead in the world, where people don't have very much energy in them. The more that a person has energy in them, the more they're in God consciousness. So we can literally, just request those energies flow into us, and they will do so. And I think that's probably one of the beginner steps of really shifting yourself and accessing higher frequencies. Just, you can go sit on the mountain, and the mountain's full of high frequencies. The rocks are. Ask these different ancient spirits that are in solid 3D physical form to channel the higher frequencies into you, and they'll willingly do so.
Great. Yeah. I'm thinking we should probably wrap up soonish, but I'm curious.
Darn.
I mean, we could. There's
like
so
literally
much here.
just like
it is infinite. You are infinite, as are we.
Yes, and I wanted to go ahead.
Yeah. Oh well, I was just gonna ask.
Go ahead.
Love it. I was gonna ask. Is there? You have a podcast. Like, where can people learn more about your work and about you?
So they can find me on the World Wide Web at www.sarahradams.com, and that's Sarah with an H. And I'm doing retreats right now where I teach people how to speak to ETs and open stargates. So this is great. I love doing this work. Also, of course, I do a lot of work for Gaia TV, so they can find me on George Norrie, and also on Buzzsaw with Sean Stone. I did that a while back. And I just did Ancient Civilizations. So I'm excited about that, because there's some beautiful information and divine information in that. Yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast. I want to finish off by saying, humanity, a lot of people think that God has turned their backs. It's back on them, when actually it's humanity that's turned its back on the divine, which has been there all along. And the
Mm.
divine deeply loves humanity and cares about humanity because it sends some of its highest beings to aid them in every possible way. And humanity is unconditionally loved. And one day it will awaken to this. And I have deep faith in that. And I have deep faith in humanity that they're going to awaken at some point.
Mm.
And until then, we just, we get to do the work on ourselves. We get to channel in higher frequencies and have faith that everything's going to be okay.
Well said. I completely agree. And yeah, thank you so much for this really amazing conversation.
Aw.
And yeah, thank you for joining. And if you're still here listening, watching, thank you for tuning in. And definitely make sure to visit our website at lifeeconomy.com for more episodes, or share this episode with a friend, and or leave us a review on iTunes, and go check out Sarah's work. Her podcast is Cosmic Conversations.
Yes.
Some excellent episodes there as well. Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I love doing this. Thank you.